missing man table salutes the people who are unable to with the people they love. They had friends and families. They had a life. Now they live on in our hearts. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing men and women. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives on answering the call. The single red rose reminds us of the lives of these Americans and their loved ones and friends who keep the faith while seeking answers. The yellow ribbon symbolizes our continued determination to account for our missing. The slice of lemon reminds us of their sour and bitter fate, captured and missing in foreign land. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears of our missing and their families who long for answers after decades of uncertainty. The lightened candle reflects our hope for their return, alive or dead. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith to sustain us, and those lost from our country founded as one nation under God. The glass is inverted, symbolizing their inability to share toast. The chair is empty, the seat that remains unclaimed at the table.
Proud to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Steve Rockwell. He is a graduate of Arkansas State University. He graduated magna cum laude in university honors with a double major in philosophy and psychology and double minors in cognitive science and religious studies. He has a Master of Arts in political science, where he also graduated with honors. He was a professor of political science at ASU and taught U.S. government. He retired as a vice president of Corning Publishing Company. Mr. Rockwell is married to his wife, Dana, who is a vocational technical administrator at ASU Newport on the Jonesboro campus. They live in Jonesboro and are members of Blessed Sacrament Church. Mr. Rockwell and his wife are the proud parents of 2 daughters, and they have 7 grandchildren. Please welcome Mr. Steve Rockwell.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak today in honor of the veterans. I also want to recognize our police, firefighters, and first responders, and on behalf of Mitch Worthington and all the veterans who wanted to say thank you to everyone for putting this on. So according to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the term veteran applies to a person who served in the active military, naval, or air service, and who was discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable. Veterans Day dates back to 1919. The holiday grew out of the commemoration of Armistice Day, when fighting between the Allied countries and Germany ended on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. It's been observed in one form or another since 1919, when then President Woodrow Wilson commemorated the first anniversary of the World War I armistice. It was officially recognized as a federal holiday in 1938 and became known as Veterans Day in 1954. Although I didn't serve in the military, I come from a family of veterans, most of whom saw combat. My grandfather served in World War I. All of my uncles and first cousins served in either World War II or the Korean War. My father was also a Korean War veteran, and my wife's Dana's father was a combat veteran of 2 wars, World War II and Korea. When I was young, our family lived in Arlington, Virginia, and my father served in the Navy and worked in the Pentagon under Admiral Arleigh Burke. We would often drive by Arlington Cemetery. The experiences that I have shared with the veterans over the years brought meaning and depth to my memories of the cemetery, which I remember as a vast field of white headstones. It's noteworthy that the purposes of Veterans Day and Memorial Day are different. Memorial Day is meant to honor all those who served and gave their lives for our country. Veterans Day honors all veterans, both living and dead, who served in times of war and in times of peace. On this important day, I want to share an amazing story about a couple of my friends, two outstanding Vietnam veterans, Jim Fulkerson and Bob Ingram. I traveled to Vietnam with Jim, Bob, and 12 other Marines that they served with. The initial trip that I made was in 2000, and we returned again in 2001. Jim and Bob served together in Suicide Charlie Company in Vietnam. Jim was commander of a platoon of about 42 Marines. Bob, also known as Doc Ingram, was attached to Jim's platoon as a Navy corpsman. Now, Navy corpsmen supply medical treatment to Marines both on and off the battlefield. Soldiers fight battles not only with their weapons, but they also fight with their hearts and minds. Michel de Montenay said that valor is stability, not of arms and legs, but of courage and the soul. Both Jim and Bob adhered to the core values of the Marine Corps: honor, courage, and commitment. The motto of the Marine Corps is Semper Fidelis, Latin for always faithful. The motto represents the bond between the Marines and their commitment to the success of their battles, the progress of the nation, and to their fellow Marines. Now, all service members take the oath of enlistment. They swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. They swear allegiance to the Constitution rather than a specific individual or political party. The core statement of the oath states, "I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic." When our service members defend the Constitution, they're fighting for all of us. Congressman Berry said to me one night that democracy hangs on by a fine thread, and that thread can break if we don't maintain it. Now, the term valor is used to describe boldness or determination in facing great danger, especially in battle, heroic courage, and bravery. These short stories that I'm about to recite describe acts of valor. On February 8th, a few years ago, Jim Fulkerson and I were visiting. He seemed kind of agitated. I asked him if he was okay, and he said, "It's February the 8th, and I said, "Yeah, well, February the 8th rolls around every year." He said, "You don't understand. Let me tell you about February the 8th, 1966. I listened carefully as Jim described a firefight in Vietnam. Suicide Charlie Company was ordered to reconnoiter a small rice paddy, or check out a small rice paddy, just west of the village of Phu Long Fort in North Vietnam. Jim's platoon was ambushed. They took fire from the hill and from a tree line. When the firefight began, Jim turned to give an order when a bullet whizzed by his chest and struck John Solly in the chest, killing him. Solly lunged forward, and Jim caught the young Marine in his arms as Solly fell face down in the mud. Jim survived, but the memories of that battle stayed with him all of his life. Memories that haunted him in nightmares, never went away. Doc Ingram's canteens exploded from machine gun fire as he treated the Marines' bullet wounds and landmine injuries. Jim said, "Solly's bullet was meant for me." I said, "Jim, if it was your bullet, you would have been hit. You're here for a lot of reasons." My attempt to console Jim was futile. Gerald Stansel and Fred Nelson played harmonicas together in Vietnam. One evening, Gerald Stansel gave Freddie his harmonica, and he said, "I don't think I'll be needing this anymore." Stansel was killed the next day in a Phu Long firefight. Jim was awarded the Bronze Star with the Combat V for Valor, and Corpsman Ingram received the Silver Star for his actions. The memories of February the 8th were always with Jim and Bob. The crucible of their battles formed an inseparable bond, a brotherly love between those men. Later that evening, I asked Jim if he ever thought about going back to Vietnam. He said that he promised himself as he was boarding the plane that he would never go back. I said that I thought that he would, and if he ever did, I'd like to go back with him. He said, "Don't hold your breath. Well, less than a year later, in 2000, I got a call from Jim's son, Brian. He said, "You better pack your bag. My dad says you're committed to going to Vietnam." So as a philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards. It must be lived forwards." We can't see a fraction of a second into the future. Our only source of information is our past experiences. The 15 Marines who returned to Vietnam in 2000 and again in 2001 saw beautiful landscapes and friendly people at peace. It's in sharp contrast to their vivid memories of bloody battlefields that they saw in 1966. The anticipation of returning to those battlefields left the Marines with bellyaches, nightmares, and flashbacks. Mac Farrick said that he feared being in Vietnam without a gun. So courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to advance in the face of fear. The Marines returned to their battlefields, and once again they courageously faced their fears. On March 28, 1966, during Operation Indiana, Charlie Company was attacked by a heavy weapons battalion of North Vietnamese regulars at the village of Vinh Loc. 11 Marines were killed and many others were wounded, including Corpsman Bob Ingram, who suffered 4 gunshot wounds. Despite his wounds, Doc Ingram treated the wounded, gathered ammunition, and engaged the enemy. His team put him on a medevac helicopter. When he arrived at the Chu Lai base camp, he was such a mess that they put him on a dead pile. They discovered that he was alive when he started shouting. Jim was on leave in Japan and had just returned to Chu Lai base when he was told the Charlie Company was in heavy combat. So Jim hopped a ride on to the battlefield on a medevac helicopter. He wanted to be with his team. He spent the night on the hill, and the next day he led what was left of his men away from the battlefield. For his action on the battlefield during Operation Indiana, Navy Corpsman Bob Ingram was recommended for the Congressional Medal of Honor, which is the nation's highest military award for valor. It is presented by the President in Congress's name. However, in the chaos and the aftermath of the battle, that paperwork was lost. It's said that adversity reveals character. It does not create character. Doc and Jim and their fellow Marines moved forward to overcome adversity, regardless of the challenges. So after 29 years, Jim and Bob met at Orange Beach, Alabama, and Jim asked Doc what commendation he received for Operation Indiana. Doc told Jim that he received a Purple Heart. Jim said, "We recommended you for the Medal of Honor." And Doc said, "That's the first I've heard of it. I didn't expect anything. I was just doing my job." So during a White House ceremony on July 10, 1998, over 31 years after Operation Indiana, the Congressional Medal of Honor was presented to Hospital Corpsman Robert R. Ingram by President Bill Clinton. Jim was there along with over 20 of the men that they served with in Vietnam. Robert Doc Ingram had his own personal Medal of Honor challenge point pennant with the inscription, "It's not about me, it's about the team." Medals are awarded, they are not won. They are received. Doc Ingram is a Medal of Honor recipient. There are no winners in combat. According to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, there are only 60 living Medal of Honor recipients today. The freedoms that our Constitution guarantees can be taken from us unless we protect it. We are forever indebted to our veterans whose courageous sacrifices to protect and defend our country and its Constitution. Whether in peacetime or in war, all service members swear the oath of enlistment. So what can we do to show appreciation for our veterans going forward? I offer this as a suggestion. Wherever you encounter a veteran, whether it's in a restaurant, while you're shopping, at a ball game, look the veteran in the eyes, shake their hand, and simply say, "Thank you for serving our country." It will let them know that we're all in this together. They get it. To our veterans in the audience, thank you for serving our country. and thank all of you for the honor of speaking today.